Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about a topic I am pretty passionate about, one that's a little controversial, and that is breastfeeding. So before I start this video, I wanted to make a quick disclaimer that I do not care how you choose to feed your baby. I know lots of women choose not to breastfeed their babies, and that is 100% okay. I'm not shaming anyone who chooses not to breastfeed. You do what is best for you and your family. There are a million reasons why women can't breastfeed or choose not to breastfeed. But this video is specifically going to be about breastfeeding, so if you're not interested in that, or if you're just going to leave hate comments about breastfeeding, then just click off this video. Something that may seem to come supernatural, like breastfeeding, does not always come supernatural for a lot of people, including myself. You would think that babies just know how to latch on, and that moms just know how to breastfeed, and that it's this beautiful, magical thing right off the bat. That was not my experience. That may have been a lot of other women's experiences, and a lot of other women breastfeeding comes super easy at the beginning, and that's fantastic for them. That wasn't the case for me, and that wasn't the case for lots of other women. So the first thing that comes with breastfeeding, and that was kind of a shock to me, was supply. Specifically, when I mean supply is oversupply or undersupply. And for me, I had an oversupply. I did not deal with undersupply. Both are not really fun to deal with at all, but I have heard that if you'd rather pick one, most women would choose an oversupply than an undersupply, just in general. So I don't have much to speak on about undersupply since I do not struggle with that, but there's so much information out there. If you are struggling with an undersupply, see a lactation consultant. So for me, I had an oversupply, and what I mean is when I first, after I gave birth, your body produces something called colostrum, and colostrum is this thick, golden like yellow milk that is so good for your baby. It has tons of antibodies. It is super healthy, tons of nutrients for your baby, and that is the thing that they nurse usually the first couple days of birth. In my case, my baby only nursed for about 2 days before my actual milk came in. And when my milk came in, it came in fast and hard. My boobs were like rocks, and they were super red and inflamed, and they hurt. It was not fun. And I think the majority of women experience, it's called engorgement, experience engorgement in those first couple days, or in those first, in my case, 2 weeks of breastfeeding. It's normal, but it's not fun. Now I looked all over the internet for solutions to engorgement, and the things I found were cabbage leaves, cold packs, and frequent nursing. That was it. Oh, and hand expressing. But I'm going to be honest with you, none of those things worked for me. I and my husband go out and buy cabbage leaves like I think about 6 or 7 times, because I was just constantly taking the leaves. What you do with cabbage leaves is you take them, you put them in the fridge, you crush them up, and then you put them in your bra, like literally on your boobs, and it's supposed to relieve engorgement, and it's supposed to help with pain and inflammation. I did that all the time. Personally, for me, it didn't help at all. I didn't notice a difference. I don't know. Maybe it will work for you, so if you have engorgement, definitely give that a shot. The same thing with like cold compresses. They didn't work. That maybe helped with some of the heat and a little bit with the pain, but it did not relieve my engorgement whatsoever. Hand expressing relieved the engorgement temporarily, but within like 10 minutes it'd be right back to engorged. So I was engorged for a really long time. Finally, coming up about 2 weeks of engorgement, I was so done. I knew I had to do something, and it just wasn't going away. Nothing I was researching was working. What I decided to do was pump. Now, everywhere you look for engorgement, it says do not pump, because breastfeeding is a supply and demand relationship. The more milk you take out from your breast, the more milk your body produces. So if you're wanting to make your supply go lower, then you don't want to be taking as much milk out, because eventually your body regulates to what your baby needs to eat. And it's the opposite for undersupply. If you want more milk, you should be feeding more frequently or pumping more frequently to make your body produce more milk. But I didn't have an option. I did not want to get mastitis, which is a horrible, horrible infection in your boobs, and it can get so bad to where you actually have to stop breastfeeding. I did not want to go through that. So I knew I had to do something, and I eventually ended up pumping on one side, because at the time my baby was still obviously a newborn. She was like 2 weeks old, and so she'd only eat on one side. What would happen is the other side would get super full, and that side wouldn't be eaten on for multiple hours at a time, because babies usually eat about every 2 to 3 hours when they're newborns. So I would put her on the one side, and then I would pump on the other after she was done eating. I did that for all day long after every feeding, and I did that all throughout the night. But it seems like a lot of work. However, after a few days of doing that, maybe about a week of doing that, not only did it really help my engorgement for the majority of the day, but eventually she started nursing on both sides, so she replaced the pump. So then she was able to take the amount on this side and a little bit off this side. And after a little bit of time, it completely regulated. My boobs were not engorged anymore, my milk regulated, I was fine, and to this day I have not had any issues with supply. My supply is pretty good, in my opinion. My baby's gained really good weight, so if you have engorgement and nothing else is working, give pumping a shot. The next topic on breastfeeding is the latch. This part sucked for me. The reason why the latch is so difficult, and it's difficult for a lot of women and babies, especially in the beginning, is because they have tiny, tiny little mouths, and you want them, when they latch, to get your whole nipple in their mouth. And I mean like your whole areola. You don't just want a little bit of it. You want as much boob as you can get in their mouth, You also don't want their lips to be like this. Like, you want them to be pursed like this on your boob, because that is going to create the best suction. It's going to get the most milk out of your boobs, and it's going to be the least painful way. But at the beginning, baby has no idea what they're doing. I had no idea what I was doing. So my mom, who was staying with us after my daughter was born, would come and she would literally hold my boob in a position. I would just try to get my boob or her head in any position that wasn't painful, because it feels like baby shark teeth when you don't have a good latch. It hurts so bad. So if I found like there was a position that wasn't super painful, we would just sit there like this. Like, my mom would have her hand on one part of me, and I'd have my baby's head in a certain way. And we'd sit there for like 20 minutes or however long it took her to nurse. So that was a struggle in the beginning. The one thing that did help me in the beginning, I'll show you what this is, that I think every woman needs at the beginning of their breastfeeding journey, is this. A boppy pillow. It looks like this. Mine is dirty, so just ignore that. But it goes around you like this, and you set your baby on it and you can nurse them, because in those beginning days, you're not, like, all you're focused on is getting that latch, so you don't want to have to focus on holding your baby and trying to get them to latch. I would just use both my hands to try and get her to latch on as best as I could. If you don't, I guess, technically need a boppy pillow, but a pillow of some sort that you can breastfeed with. Once you get the hang of breastfeeding, you won't need those anymore. I literally can just walk around my kitchen and breastfeed her. You eventually get the hang of it. Okay. The one tool for breastfeeding that I recommend for every new mom is called the Haaka Pump. It looks like this, and it looks really funny. Now what this is, it is basically a hand pump, but it catches the letdown of your milk. Okay, my camera cut off on me. So, Haaka Pump. This little thing is amazing, especially in those early days of breastfeeding. It looks like this, and basically how it works is you take it and you attach it to your boob. You do this, hold this in, you put it on, and you let go. And what it does is it suctions to the boob, and you're breastfeeding your baby on the other one. So it catches the letdown, and it actually pulls a little bit more than the letdown out. And the letdown is what happens when your milk comes down, because at the beginning your baby sucks a few times and then your milk actually lets down. A lot of women will feel a cold rush. I feel like a tingling in my nipples when it happens. And this will collect the milk that's leaking out of the other side. So then when you're done breastfeeding, you can switch it to the other side if you want, and you'll have a nice little collection of milk in here that you can actually store in the freezer for building up your frozen milk supply. Literally, I collected so much milk in the beginning because of how much milk I was collecting just in this. I never even had to pump until I wanted to relieve my engorgement, but this also helped relieve some engorgement. However, this was the main reason why I was able to collect so much milk in our freezer supply. And I exclusively breastfeed, but I still have a ton of milk in there for whenever we need it. So definitely recommend one of these if you'd want one and you're looking to have a freezer supply. Get one of these for sure. One of the main things I'm going to talk about is bras and what you should wear with breastfeeding. For me, I don't have big boobs. I never had big boobs to begin with. They're bigger now than breastfeeding, but they're not big by any means. So I really just use normal sports bras. My mom went out and got me, I think, 2 or 3 that were just a size up from my normal size, since my boobs were so engorged at the time. And I just use typical sports bras for nursing or under my clothes. You can get more supportive bras. I know that they have some. I don't know of any because, again, I don't wear them, but that's all I wore. And then as far as shirts go, there's different ways you can breastfeed. You can either breastfeed by pulling your shirt down and taking your boob out that way, or you can pull your shirt up and the baby goes underneath. For me, I prefer to pull my shirt up and put the baby underneath. So I don't really care how the neckline on my shirts are, as long as I can just pull the shirt up and nurse my baby. I can pretty much wear whatever I want. And last but not least, a controversial subject as well: drinking while breastfeeding. I personally do drink. I do not get drunk. I do not get wasted. I like to have a glass of wine. Usually on the weekends, I will have a glass of wine at night after I put my daughter down to bed. There's a lot of misconception out there about alcohol and breastfeeding. I highly encourage you to do your research. Do what you're comfortable with doing. From my personal experience, I have never pumped and dumped. I feed my daughter after she goes to bed, so I know that she's going to be sleeping for a few hours before I actually have to go in and feed her. And I've never had any issues. If I get a little bit of a buzz, I just make sure to drink a good amount of water, and by the time I go in to breastfeed her, my buzz is gone. And the typical rule that I got from a lactation consultant is if you are feeling it, if you are buzzed or tipsy, you should probably breastfeed your baby. But if you are fine and you don't have that feeling, or that feeling is gone, you are safe to breastfeed, because that means that that blood alcohol level in your breast milk is actually gone now. Even if you did breastfeed while you were buzzed or tipsy, the amount that actually gets to your baby is so tiny that it would probably have zero effect at all. But to be safe, don't do that. I, again, have never had a bad experience with it. I've pretty much been having a glass of wine at night a couple times a week since she's been born. I'm doing what I'm comfortable with. You do what you're comfortable with. Do your own research. Talk to your doctor or your lactation consultant about how you should be handling that. Guys, I think that includes my breastfeeding video and how my journey went. I have really enjoyed breastfeeding. I love how convenient breastfeeding is. I don't have to mix bottles or formula. It's just right there from the source every single time, no matter where I am, it's ready to go. And it's a great bond with my baby. It's a great tool at getting them to sleep if it's if you have to get them to sleep, nurse, and typically they crash out. So I love breastfeeding. I plan on doing it until at least 1 year old, probably when she starts to naturally wean off herself. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Let me know if you have any questions, and you can hit the like button if you want, but again, you don't have to.